Hello everyone, this is Chris with Sticker Fab, and today we are going to be installing Rally Armor mud flaps on that 2025 Toyota 4Runner, and I'm actually really excited about this install because this vehicle is an SR5 and it didn't come with any mud flaps from the factory. The factory ones are kind of small, they're hard plastic, just like the front air dam right there, and I think this will be a much better solution overall. They're going to have a lot more coverage, so even if you guys upgrade some of your wheels and they get a little bit bigger, these are going to have way more coverage than the OEM ones. And I love Rally Armor mud flaps for the material that they're made out of. They've done a really good job of finding this or making this material that is a kind of perfect blend for a mud flap. It's heavy enough that it'll knock down dirt and debris so that it doesn't fly all over your vehicle and doesn't fly all over other people's vehicles. However, it is light enough so that it gives way. You can still off-road with these mud flaps. In case you hit something, the mud flap will just bend. It can actually fold just like that pretty easily. What they do is they make custom brackets on the inside so that it can kind of hold its shape. And you can see right here, it just sits perfectly straight down. And then from side to side, it goes like this, and it doesn't have any awkward angles or anything like that. But let's go grab the ones for the 4Runner and start that installation right now. All right, let's begin this install. You can see that I've already finished the driver's side of this install because I wanted to get a good feeling of how this installs before I try to show you guys. You can see the rear's mounted up right there and the front mounted up right there. So let's go over to the passenger side and get that done. You will receive these instructions and they have a full inventory of what should be included. I would do a quick inventory because any manufacturer can leave out parts. So before you get too in-depth with your install, go ahead, do the inventory, make sure you have all the parts, and if you don't, contact their customer service, and if you do, just start with your install. I would look at all of these little diagrams and note that they have an explosion diagram on the very back that might help you make more sense of how all of the fasteners are aligned and put together. So definitely take a good look at that. These are the tools that I used for the install: a 1/4-inch ratchet, a 10mm socket, a 12mm socket. Then I also had this screwdriver with the adapter socket, and I have a Phillips head and a flathead. This flathead is just for pulling out the factory OEM plastic fasteners. For both the front and rear, if your vehicle came equipped with the factory OEM plastic mud guards, you're going to want to take those off first. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is remove these 4 fasteners right there. Use that 10mm socket. It's a lot easier than using a Phillips head on these. And if you're one of those people that keep all of your stock hardware, just throw these in the box in a corner so they don't get mixed up with the other hardware, the new hardware that you'll be using. All right, now in those same areas, we're going to be installing some foam spacers. You want to make sure that this area is nice and clean. Probably clean it off better than I'm doing right now. I'm just rubbing it. The reason for these foam spacers is that we want the mud flap to sit flat. We don't want it to get bowed. So we want to have this like flat mounting surface. Here's one of those. Just take the backing off. Get a good look at that hole. You might need a flashlight. Just want to make sure that it is centered over that hole. Here is the larger foam piece. You might want to just kind of test fit that and see how it fits before removing that foam and installing it. All right, for this hole that we removed the plastic fastener, we're going to have to put this clip into it because we need to make a point where we can drill a screw into there. So push the liner and insert it over the hole. You'll actually hear it click because it will go into that hole if you get the alignment right. This fat part goes to the rear. There we go. And on the front side of that, they do want us to put a little spacer. Try to center that up as much as possible. There we go. For the front, we're going to use this bracket that says BMF 96/RE. On the bottom side of the bracket, clean that off, and we are going to install these stickers. I'm pretty sure this sticker is just so that you don't see this big silver piece underneath the vehicle. So I guess this is appropriate for sticker fab. All right. Of course, you can do a cleaner install than I'm doing right now. There you go. All right, now we're going to remove this factory bolt right here. It just screws into a plastic piece, so when you screw on the new bracket, just keep that in mind. We're not going to crank down on it really hard. All right, so let's screw this back in with that same bolt. This stud is on the high side. Make sure you don't flip this bracket around backwards, and then the stud would be like down here. We'll tighten this up a little bit, however, we won't crank down on it all the way. I'll tighten that back at the very end. I just want to make sure that this bracket is out far enough or in far enough so that it doesn't affect how the flap lays, and we can just adjust that at the very end. So it goes in and out. We'll just leave it right there for now. All right, now we're going to secure this bracket to the mud flap. It goes on the side opposite of the logo. It doesn't matter which one you use because you can just flip it over and it becomes the one for the other side. They give you these little plastic bolts and plastic nuts, and you combine them with little plastic washers. The nuts go on the side facing the logo, and the bolt goes through the other side. For now, just hand tighten those down. You'll tighten them a little bit more once you get the final alignment. All right, now we're going to use a ton of those plastic washers. At the very top here, we are using a 1.5 inch screw. Let's just hand tighten that down real quick so we can get the other ones in. Another 1.5 inch for the next hole down. Let's try to align that. Another 1.5 inch for the hole below that. For that little stud, we use a plastic washer and a stainless steel lock bolt. So now we might have to push this out just a little bit. All right, there we go. And then that last one, we actually use a 1 inch stainless steel screw and plastic fastener. Okay, before we crank down on all of this, take into consideration how much your tire pokes out. You might want this to be in a little bit more if you don't have really wide tires or really wide wheel setup. I don't need that much extra coverage out here. So I've scooted this in all the way. I'm making sure that this is pretty much straight up and down, and this runs horizontally with the ground. I want to hand tighten these a little bit more, the plastic bolts. Then I can tighten this a little bit more, that lock nut. Now I need to use a Phillips head to tighten the rest of these. I'm going to use my ratchet because, of course, I didn't want to take my wheel and tire off, nor did I really need to crank them to one side or the other if I'm just going to use this ratchet. Remember, all of this is screwing into plastic, so you don't really need to crank down too hard. Plus, there's those foam spacers, so you want it to still remain straight. If you crank down as hard as you can, this is going to bow out. Sure, everything's tightened down evenly, nothing is loose. go back to that lock nut. Nice and tight. That one was a 12 millimeter. Let's go back to this 10 millimeter that's holding that mounting bracket on. Make sure it's pretty tight. And now we're done with the front. All right, now we are at the rear of the vehicle, and the first thing we want to do is remove these two little plastic fasteners. Right there. The hardware we will be replacing it with is this. We are going to take that little screw out and discard that. We won't need it. And then we just push those into here. Just gives those screws that we'll be installing later on a place to screw into. All right, time to get under the vehicle real quick. We're going to be undoing this inner bolt. They provide another bolt, so we actually don't need this one anymore. All right, real quick, we are taking this bracket. They've labeled BMF 88-1. It will have the stud on the high side. It's going to have a spacer right here. You're not going to use this perfect circle in the back. You're going to use this elongated hole right here. And then you'll have a 1-inch stainless steel screw. You're going to put the plastic washer on, and you'll be screwing it from the underside of the vehicle just like this. We're going to leave this loose because we need to install some foam pads behind this bracket. All right, technically it's just one foam pad right behind there. Let's kind of clean this off right here. Again, you guys can do a better job than I am doing with just my hands. You could actually use soap and whatnot. Let's test fit this piece. Pull that bracket forward. Okay, that's how it's gonna fit. It's kind of difficult to do because I'm reaching over the camera. So I'm just gonna move that. I'll pull that back over it, like so. And then our last two foam spacers go right here, right over that hardware we just installed. I kind of misspoke when I said last two foam spacers because you guys will have the other side to do. I'm actually on my last mud flap. So we have the 1.5-inch screw right here. We have the plastic washer right here. And then we have our rear bracket. I'm gonna flip this over. One side is really flat and the other has these, like, I think injection molded circles on it. So I'm just gonna face those against that so we don't see those little additional circles. Honestly, that's more of an OCD thing than functional thing. And then we're going to use another 1.5-inch screw and plastic washer. I'm not tightening these down all the way again because I want to make sure that everything is adjusted and aligned properly before really cranking down on them. And then on the inner stud, we're using a plastic washer and the stainless steel lock nut. Take a look at the mud flap from the rear of the vehicle. Make sure everything's vertical. If you don't want it poking out a lot, just put a little pressure inward on it. And then you can tighten everything down a little bit more. I'm gonna have to go back to my Phillips head, the adapter, and that ratchet. Again, we're not tightening down on these a whole lot because it is just screwing into plastic. Last one. Check the alignment one last time. And then I'm done with my install. You guys will just need to mirror this for the other side. All right, I just wanted to pull this vehicle into the light for a second so you guys can see a shot going all around the vehicle. You can check out what those mud flaps look like installed from every angle. I really do like them, and because they can accommodate larger wheels, I think I'm going to get larger wheels and larger tires on this vehicle in time. First, we got to earn some sales, make it worth our while. And there you have it. That's the install for the Rally Armor mud flaps for the 2025 and up Toyota 4Runner. You can find these on my site at stickerfab.com. Please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already, and hit the bell notification icon for the latest and greatest things I'm coming out with for this platform.